welcome to another GoDaddy Pro EMEA Meetup. Today, as we announced even last Monday, we said that June, July, and August are going to represent the Woo Summer campaign, where our aim is to introduce and actually encourage freelancers and agencies and companies to engage more in online business in the new era. So today, our co-host, like throughout the whole summer, is Ronald Giselle. Hello, Ronald.
Hello, hello.
How are you today?
I'm good. We have finally some nice weather, but I've only just learned your weather is not so great this summer, so we had to wait a long time, but finally it's here.
Actually, I think we switched the climates. I think you guys are having our climate and we received your climate. So it's
it's all messed up because we're not supposed to have nice weather in the UK. So,
well, it seems that things are changing and things are changing for better. We're just maybe entering a small cold season, and let's see if we end up going out of it. So today's talk, what we're going to be talking about is how to plan your business with WooCommerce. There is a number of prerequisites actually that can influence development, online development of any business. There is also from the side of a client, but also from the side of a developer or an agency. So Ronald, tell us please, how should we start even think when we talk about preparing your business with Woo? Where do we start with this topic?
You shouldn't worry, because I'm going to worry a little bit about the complexity and how easily things go wrong. Now, my talk is for those who have some experience with WooCommerce, those who are thinking about taking on WooCommerce clients or projects for e-commerce clients, but also if you are quite familiar with it or you are a seasoned developer, I still think there is some value in it, because I myself have started so many WooCommerce stores. You know, it's probably at least installed it 100 times, but there are probably 30, 40 stores which are in business, generating regular income. And with all of them, I've made small mistakes, and with all of them, I've learned something. So hopefully, I can put it all together in this next small presentation. It might overwhelm you, but I'm sure there are one or two things that you can pick out from that might be quite useful. I will save you some time.
Whoa, awesome. I think that's great. I mean, I just told you like a couple of minutes back that I'm planning to spin off another Woo shop. So I'm sure I'm going to come and ask you for certain advices, but maybe even this presentation will actually help me a lot to understand what I need to do from all sides of this perspective in order for both the client and myself as a developer to be happy about user experience and profitability. So without further ado, why don't we start with the presentation, and then our valuable guests who have any questions, please do ask them in the chat, or perhaps even ask so we show you on screen. Maybe you want a question to ask to Ronald or me directly, or perhaps you just want to actually leave a chat comment on what we're talking. So feel free to do anything. I mean, this is a community meetup, so we hope that you will enjoy to the maximum. Thank you.
Great. Yes. Any questions? Feel free. So preparing for success, and in particular the customer journey. I think the customer journey is always going to be central to everything that I do and think about and prepare and plan. So that's why it's the subtitle, but just always keep that in mind, because it makes most sense. Anyway, what we're going to discover today is like I said, a customer's view to manage a project. So you put yourselves into the customer, and through the journey, we identify the different tasks, the functionalities, the parts that we all need to implement, plan before we actually start building the project. And of course, your success depends on tackling bottlenecks, and I'll explain what I mean with the bottlenecks, how to identify them, and how to make sure that you prepare yourself for that. And planning ahead for the future for all stakeholders, because you can create the most beautiful store, and when it comes to launch day and then a month later, you'll have the accounts department saying, oh, can I have an export of all the orders? Or what about a tax export, but also for the delivery, etc. You know, there are different stakeholders that want to have a say on how the project is run. WooCommerce is a tool; it's not a business. So for it's a tool to enable you to do something, which is selling online. So making sure that everybody can use that tool is absolutely key. And of course, I've probably said it already, tackle WooCommerce projects more effectively. And you can learn from all my mistakes, because pretty much every slide includes a mistake that I've made or something that I've learned from talking to lots of people. My name is Ronald Giselle. I was born in the Netherlands, live in the UK now. I have a wife, 2 kids, a dog, and a mortgage, which means I'm stuck in a rat race, but luckily I enjoy the work that I do as a partnership manager at Yith. I also co-host the London WooCommerce Meetup. Maya is a regular there, so always really happy to see her, always a happy and cheerful person to interact. I co-host I actually host the WooCommerce Roundtable with on Do the Woo, which is run by Bob WP. There we go, that's me. So, you know, I mean, you can see me obviously, but it's I'm part of a bigger team within Yith that we create various plugins for WooCommerce. So we see a lot of questions coming through from support, as well as through the meetup, as well as talking to people at WooCommerce. So, and then on top of that, it's my own experience as a freelancer before all of that. So I've seen a lot of issues. So what are the options? If you want to build an e-commerce store, you know, there are different types of stores. You have the traditional one, which is the online store where you ship goods to a customer. I think that's pretty much how WooCommerce is set up. It's you add products, you add tax info, shipping info, customer creates an account, they check out, and you can set it when you send the items. There are a few other options like digital content, or you can set up, for example, as a service provider where you can create appointments. And there are loads of different verticals. So, you know, you can create an auction website, but also a physical store with an online presence, or a physical store with various locations. But also you can go further, like creating a membership with an annual or sort of monthly recurring income subscription where you give access to courses, for example, or you can build it out into a multi-vendor place where you can create something similar to Airbnb, where you can rent out accommodation, where you have different vendors, different people listing their accommodation and rent it out, and so on. You know, name it, it's pretty much possible with e-commerce, which makes WooCommerce so super flexible, yet also complicated, because there isn't a single playbook where you can build up your store or design it with the same tools, because every store is totally different. Even if you have a clothing store and a clothing store, one wants to be connected to one email marketing, the other one has a different setup because they want to create some loyalty points. So every store is totally different, which of course makes it a potential disaster, because as you know yourself, if you could have a DIY project and you think you know it all, you've got all designed and you put everything together, there's quite a big chance that things don't work out exactly as you plan it. Because maybe you didn't plan it well enough. Maybe you didn't ask everybody involved, all the stakeholders, what they really want, what they want to achieve from it. And most crucial, most important is the customer that needs to be able to buy something, succeed, and you know, you want to convert the customer and bring them back again. And that's absolutely key to what we're going to do. So as you build it, you know, you might try different plugins or different themes, and not quite sure if you like it, because what happens, and I've done this myself, is you go and register a domain, you go to a host, and they say, do you want WooCommerce hosting? So, yes, please. So you install WooCommerce. The next thing is they ask you, or you go through these different sequence of screens. which theme do you like? And you go through them all. It's like, that looks really nice. I can just imagine my store being like that. And then as you go through the different steps, the next part is creating, because you have this online wizard of WooCommerce. You say, add your first product. Where's your store located? Do you charge taxes? Do you have delivery? And you go through all the different basic settings. And then you come through that point when you actually start to decide what your business is going to do, what functionality you want to create. So imagine if you go down the middle path here of creating different variations for your products. You start thinking about deals, but also prices. But as you go through the prices, then you have to add taxes and delivery charges, because it's not something you think about well before you even start installing WooCommerce. And as you go through the whole cycle, you come back around again, you have remarketing, landing pages, and you come back to the different settings. So you go through this never-ending loop of building and creating your store. You learn a lot because you learn a lot through mistakes. Now, if you do this for a customer or a group of customers, because there is an accountant, there's a boss, there's a person that will actually have to pack and send things off, then there's a person that's on customer care who needs to deal with returns. They all have different requirements. And then there's the marketing person say, whoa, I need to show, do this. I want to be able to create wish lists. And then when everybody's ready, you come to that last bit where you adjust your shipping costs, you adjust your pricing, you go through these tests, and then the final thing is, which happened to me, is payments, because payments, I have a commercial bank account, but does it allow for credit cards? Well, apparently so, but then it turns out it takes 5 days to be approved. So here we go again. You go through the checkout, last minute, people want to add gift cards and come up with some other functionality. Here, give an example of loyalty points. So you can just imagine that you have all these different afterthoughts as you go through the process of building a store, because you don't plan it well enough in advance before we even install the hosting and the different functionalities. This has happened to me so many times, so therefore it takes such a long time to launch. It can sometimes take months before you're ready, because you keep coming back to it. So the goal of starting an e-commerce project is, of course, to create a launch and then, of course, manage a sustainable store. Sustainable is also profitable. Sustainable is also that you can update it, or the plugins and the software and the hosting. And sustainable is that there is a steady growth of visitors coming to your store because it's found, because it's well built. The strategy to do that is project planning around solutions, and I'm not focusing too much on design and user experience. I think designers often put that up first because they want to create the most beautiful store, but I think until you identify exactly which solutions you want to implement, the design is going to be one of those things that will be revisited again and again and again, and I'll tell you more about that. And the tactic we're going to apply for this planning stage is to use the different paths. So customer first, then maybe the stakeholders, and make sure that everybody is satisfied with the tool, which is WooCommerce, that we're going to create. And this is my back to front planning. I know we have now on the left, we have the store launch. That's our absolute goal. But as we go through these paths of different users, different stakeholders, you have the admin or management, you have the marketing plan or marketing person, somebody's looking after customer care, a salesperson, or the journey for the customer to go through. And as you start mapping and joining these different elements, different functionalities together, you start to see there's a pattern. So design, for example, there are different key stakeholders that have a say about design, customer care, but also marketing. I mean, this is not the blueprint that you should follow. This is just purely an example. But a marketing person really needs to know what a pop-up looks like, what the email design of a abandoned cart looks like. It all needs to follow the same guidelines in design, but also the shipping and taxes, because these are things that are important to the administration, that it also follows the same points. The bottlenecks are key areas that more stakeholders have a say on, or things that hold the design stage or the development stage, it holds it back. So until you've decided that you want to create an email layout, or if you want to do an upsell, or add a wish list or gift card, these are all things you need to think about before you start going through the design stage. Because the typical scenarios that you have a product page, it's like, oh, everything is there. You've got a description, you've got a price, you've got some images, and then the marketing person says, but I want customers to allow to create a wish list, for example. Where you're going to put that, or if it's further down the line, the upselling. So actually, before you go to checkout, that you have an area where you can upsell products. These are all tiny little things that hold back the launch of a site. So that's why it's so important to think about it carefully. Just a definition for what bottlenecks are. A bottleneck is one process in a chain of processes, such that its limited capacity reduces the capacity of the whole chain. The result of having a bottleneck are stalls in production, supply of stock, blah, blah. So basically what I've said, it's, if you don't plan it well, your bottlenecks are the points. You either keep revisiting it, or you can't progress to the next stage because something is holding it back. So the way that we go through the customer journey and think of each part, each functionality, is to put yourself into the shoes of the customer. And you can do this for the customer. I mean, this is the example what we're doing, but you can do exactly the same for management, or for the person who deals with orders, posted and packaged, but also when it comes to returns. Think about each touch point within the website they need to interact with. So each point that action you want them to do, or they need to do, is there, and it's accessible, it's implemented, and it works. So for example, for the customer, this is a stage before they make that first purchase. You have some key areas. So the number one, for example, is the landing page, but also that they can search and filter the product that they're after in a really quick way before they turn away again. And number two would be a point where they start interacting. So it could be adding things to a wish list, or it could be following a social media account, or maybe an email sign up to get a discount. It needs to be a point that they want to sign up, they want to engage with you. And number three would then be a point where they come back. So it'd be a remarketing, maybe an email. It could be, Wishlist is one of those plugins that I've said it last week. I just think it's totally undervalued, because it allows you to give people the time. It's like, put things in your basket, and when it's time for you to check out, and it doesn't need to be right there, right then, because they are shopping around, of course. But that you have the ability to send them an email and say, hey, there are a few things in your wish list. Here's a 10% off. Because not everybody adds things to their cart, then creates an account. But abandoned cart could be very well a point of number three as well, so to bring them back and push them towards the conversion or the sale. So this is the stage during purchase. So imagine if you are going through a supermarket with your trolley, and this is the point where you want to upsell, or if you have you buy a kit of Mexican food, you want to add the tortillas or the wraps to add the full package, the full deal with it. But also as you go through checkout, packet of chewing gums or mint, etc., to upsell and up the average order value. But these are all tiny little interaction functionalities that you need to have thought through, implemented before you launch, because whether these are plugins or you code it yourself, it's all part of that user journey that you keep absolutely central. things during, or sorry, after purchase. So a thank you email. A thank you email is one of those that contains so much information. You know, has the order been confirmed? When is it going to be delivered? Various other, you know, it's one of those emails that's opened more than once. I think an opening rate of higher than 100%. I've learned it actually from the guys at Jilton a couple of years ago, which is fascinating. And it's one of those that if you don't think about before you design that with WooCommerce, you know, the box standard email responses, it's one of those things that I've quite often overlooked. And when it comes to launch, you know, you have the standard text, and it's a totally missed opportunity, and it doesn't even look pretty. You know, it's very obvious when you receive an email confirmation from a WooCommerce store that hasn't been optimized or styled or anything done with it. Whether you use the standard WooCommerce emails or a third-party service like MailChimp or Constant Contact, etc. Then, you know, number 7 could be a post-purchase. So it would be a request to leave a review. I think that's a great way of re-engaging the customer with your store. Maybe it's a reminder, because if you sell consumables, dog food, you know that after 1 or 2 weeks, the dog food most likely is going to be finished and they need to be replenished. Or if it's something with shoes, you know, there's a good chance that every season they need new shoes. Or if it's trainers and it's for running, that after 6 months or 1 year. So if you time that really well based on what they have purchased, there's a good chance you can re-engage them, get them to come back to your store. And of course, this is then the last stage, when people start to expire and they're not coming back for your, you know, organically, or because you push them to come back, but it's because you offer a deal or a special discount or a sale, and so on. And then, you know, point number 8, 9, I think the further away since the last purchase, maybe the better the deal. Maybe you send you know, after 1 year, a lost customer email to say, we know you've been to us, maybe you find something else, but here's a 20% off to try us for, you know, something very different. But it could also be a lifetime value of your parents that have children growing up, because as children growing up, at some point you don't need baby clothing anymore. You know, it could be something else. So you could pass a deal to those customers to refer them to another store, and you ask them to do the same to you. So you spread your network, and that's actually point number 1 or 2, to bring new customers back. So point number 9 and the last one, which is sort of not numbered, the plus, you know, you could be as creative as possible to expand your network, social sharing or recommendation, or even if you create a voucher, an Amazon voucher for anybody that refers a new customer to your store. Yeah, you can be as creative as you can. So now we've created this journey, user journey. You know, we start to map the different functionality that you need to have inside your store. So as you go through that user journey, and you have this map, this tube map. You know, you have the acquisition, the new user, the search and filter. I think it touched on quite a few of those. The remarketing to bring them back, upselling, suggestive selling, and so on and so on. So you tick every single part of your build. You make sure you have it thought through. Maybe you don't want to implement it straight away, but you know it's going to have a place. It's going to have an impact either before or after launch. And each of those functionalities, of course, has an impact on the design, which, of course, the design we know we've established, and there are many more of them. You know, but design, I think, is the most obvious. Is a bottleneck. As you start to connect the different stations or the different points, you know, you look at pre-sales and support, which is part of your upselling or suggestive selling, because support might be a frequently asked question of, does this fit with A with B? And if you're clever about it, just suggest a product that is part of that package. So you create a bundle in order to answer some of the questions, but also the customer satisfaction and the post-purchase emails. You know, it's a good opportunity to ask for reviews. And if somebody is not happy, then they have a possibility, an opportunity to put it right. So, these are just two small examples, but the different stakeholders, they all have a say within the functionality, within the range of plugins that you're going to create in order to build up your store in a very effective way. So back to the map, it's exactly the same. We start to connect the different points, the different bottlenecks, and you start to build up a picture of what you're going to need at one point to build and create your project. The travel from A to B, I mean, we've done it from a project from a design perspective, but it's also from a visitor to making a repeat purchase, or it could be from a mobile design to conversion. These are just symbolic ways, but for each path that you want your customer or the user to take, you can go through the same process of thinking, of planning. And of course, once you've got everything sorted, you start putting it into the perfect linear or whichever project management tool you want to use, whether you use Asana, Trello, or Jira, and whichever method you want to use to execute this development. And it's only then you go to the host, obviously to GoDaddy Pro, and say, hey, I've got my domain. I want to install WooCommerce, and I know exactly what I want because I thought about the whole thing, and I know that the tools that are included in the package work well together because it's all it's all thought through, and I know exactly what I want. So functionality is everything. Plugins do, I think, a lot of the heavy lifting. They are beautiful pieces of coded functionality that you keep up to date. They update with the next version of WordPress, with WooCommerce. And the way I see it, and this is often the case when it comes to, it's going to cost quite a lot, but the way I always describe it is your website is probably equal as one employee working for you 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So if let's say in Europe the average shop assistant's wages are 30,000 euros, I think it would be safe to say to your customer, well, that's maybe the budget you should be thinking of. And obviously, if the store is much larger and there's more functionality, then you extend that, because although WooCommerce is free, there are some very good deals when it comes to hosting. I think once you start everything together and the design and the planning process, etc., it all adds to that. So I think it's a good one to set some expectations with the customer. And then of course the design is really important. I don't want to put it down at all, but it is an overlay of the functionality. It is there, that sits on top of it, just as CSS is that sits on top of the the HTML and the Java that drives the website. It's just to make it look beautiful, to make it usable and pretty. And of course, the key thing is that it saves you money, because the good planning, and if you ask your stakeholders to do their homework and they give that back to you, feed that back, and you've got every box ticked, it will of course save you money in going back through those different loops that I described in the beginning, where you give feedback and say, oh, but this doesn't work, or that doesn't work. Oh, what about this? What about adding gift cards, for example? And of course, as you experiment, you only invest in what you need at the time you need it, but you already know it's going to work. And of course, near the launch, which sometimes can save you quite a bit of money as well. And of course, I don't need to explain that, but fewer surprises, no mistakes, fingers crossed, will help you. And of course, timely launch, creating a good system, more customers, more sales. Everybody's happy. And that's it. And then finally, if you want to create those maps, you can use it on the Metro Map Maker, which might help you to explain things to your customer.
Oh, thank you for this.
Time.
I was actually asking myself, where did you get the inspiration for the London Tube constantly? And I'm like, from where is this coming?
Yeah. No, it's
Yes.
the original idea was actually, to take a user, guide them to the right point, and then I started carrying away with the map make, and I find it quite a useful design tool to explain, different things, and actually sort of cross things through, because it's really easy to, to draw a few lines, and as sometimes they, total. It's better than what do you call it? Those tools that allows you to create a sitemap, because I see sometimes people using sitemaps as a planning tool to add functionality, but it's totally linear, and you can't you can't cross things and say, well, actually this is going to have an effect on that, so if we don't solve this first, there's no point even looking at the next stage. So that's why I thought it's such a useful tool.
Thank you very much. I think it was a very extensive presentation, and there is a number of questions. So I'll just start with the open questions, and then we can ask furthermore. So the Ugyen has a question saying, do WooCommerce provide tracking number to track items to the customer's destination?
No, they don't, because of course the tracking number is something that the courier supplies, and it's one of those things which can be quite tricky to do it yourself. There are some integrations with couriers that then might have a plugin that you can install that automate the process, but there are also some third-party sort of connectors that also have a plugin, and they use various couriers. So as you set the parameters of the delivery, it sends it to the courier, it automatically creates a tracking number, and that then either sends an email from WooCommerce or straight from their platform. I mean, Starship it is one, ShipStation, I mean, Google, any of them. And I think those probably are one of the better solutions than doing it yourself, unless, of course, you do free shipping, which then you don't need to have the sort of the connection on weight and size in order to create a different shipping cost. But yeah, then you still want the tracking number, isn't it? Yeah, I think one of those connections is probably going to be the best bet to automate it. Oh, I can't hear you, Maya.
I'm going between the applications. So when you spoke about during purchase, actually Ugyen made a comment saying something like a confirmation email. So I don't know if Ugyen would like to explain perhaps his question. Thank you very much, Ronald, for your great presentation. It would help aspiring entrepreneurs who wish to go online with the amazing map that you pointed out. Yeah, exactly. But also Ugyen made a comment about confirmation email. So I believe that's something like after the purchase that takes place. Bottleneck, maybe perhaps are we solving a bottleneck here?
Yeah, I think the post-purchase email, so the confirmation, I think it's really important for the user. They want to make sure that their payment has gone through successfully, that the order has been received, but it also contains information of customer support. There's a telephone number, and it sets you the different expectations. But I think the key opportunity for store owners is to use that as an opportunity to upsell. So if you bought really expensive luxury shoes, you're so focused on the shoe size, you see the stock is limited to 2, for example. There's a deal if you check out within 20 minutes, you get 10% off. So you're so focused on that checkout, which is great if you make the purchase, but then you've lost the opportunity to upsell because people don't maybe shop around. So shoe polish, or maybe a nice box to keep them really well, or things like that you could add in your confirmation email to say, maybe you forgot something or you want to add something, and we can include it in the offer. There's no additional postage, so bump the sales by two more items, I think it's a great opportunity.
So well, let me just check. Yeah, I wanted to ask you about bottlenecks. Are there any bottlenecks that we can envisage even before the project start? Like, what would be the usual bottlenecks? Like, is there a list of bottlenecks that you can expect?
It's so individual to a business. I've worked with different businesses, and I really have to see the place. I need to see how they manage their post and packaging. What computer have they got set up? Who's the person that is going to receive the email? How do they then interact with the website to say yes, received, dispatched, confirmed, the different user status. But also if you are, you create custom goods, so you create a jewelry which is handmade on order. You want to add different settings or statuses of your order, so that order received, maybe it's being processed or being manufactured, or awaiting artwork, or waiting for confirmation from the or approval from the customer. Those are different processes that have an impact on the total user journey, or the way that management is doing the business process. And so seeing that, you start to identify what the different issues are. Also payments, payments and accounts. Accountants, goodness, they have such a high requirements. When do they want their reports to be exported, what's included in them, and of course then you have the thing of GDPR. We even didn't even touch on that. So you can just imagine how complex sometimes the stores can be, the way if you set it all out, that different users, different stakeholders have a different view on how things should be done.
Ugyen is asking, how about the local payment gateway integration? Is it something WooCommerce engineer and Bhutan Bank that need to get connected to integrate Bhutan payment gateway with Bhutan Bank? So this is a business already. Okay, let's talk business. Ronald.
Yeah, payment gateways, it's again, you need to ask yourself who your customers are. So as you go through the customer journey and it comes to checkout, your users are king. They're going to vote with the wallet. If they can't make payment in their preferred method, whether this is PayPal or even Bitcoin, or I'm not sure, is it Bhutan? I don't know what the currency is. I'm so sorry.
It's Indian rupee. It's Indian rupee in Bhutan.
Okay. So the way that if that's the most used currency is, then you need to enable that. Usually you have a credit card provider.
Oh no, he said Ngutrum Bhutan currency. I'm sorry, then Wikipedia is wrong. Okay.
Yeah, I thought it was something. I wasn't. I was almost going to say the Bhutan dollar or something else, which probably is an insult to. But anyway, so business banks, they don't always know who to use, but payment providers like Stripe, if they have in Bhutan, then they know exactly how to deal with it, because people from outside Bhutan can pay with their own currency, for example. But yeah, I'd be quite interested to see what the most commonly providers are for Bhutan, because it's an area I'm definitely no expert in. But if we just talk about Europe, I know that in the UK we think that everybody pays with MasterCard and Visa, whereas the opposite is true. If you deal with European customers, if people from the Netherlands, they pay with Ideal, which is a payment provider connected to your current account, and so forth for Germany. So if you target your audience for the international customer, making sure that they can pay with a preferred payment method, and ideally 2 different ones, because people have different accounts, you might have a PayPal account because you've done some sales on eBay, you want to use that, it's another way of conversion. So back to Bhutan, I think, yeah, question that to yourself and then see what's available, and then that and possibly a second one. Also, you want to have two different payment providers, because if there's an error with one, at least you have an alternative, and you might not even realize that there is an issue, because how many users, if they can't check it because of an error, will actually report and make the effort to say, hey, I can't check out because there's an error. Please sort out. But then you might have lost 3-4 days of sale.
Correct. In case of, Ugyen, if you have any questions related to this particular question, you might want to just contact me or Ronald, and let's meet on a Zoom or something, and let's see the requirement, and let's see if this is, for instance, a struggle that you're having at the moment. Let's see how we can assist.
Yeah, I'm just reading his question. I'm not sure if I've actually answered it. So if it's something a WooCommerce engineer would in it. So it's not something a WooCommerce engineer would implement. It's something you would need to do yourself. And the easiest way is to use a payment plugin. And I'm just hoping that one of your providers that does accept Google Trum will have that enabled. That would be the easiest. And then, of course, there is documentation that helps you to set it up. Mm-hmm. And if not, maybe you're going to be the first one to create that.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Yeah. Let's catch up on this. Let's see if this is a countrywide issue, and let's see if we can sort it out as contributors. Another thing, very important part, I wanted to understand. Let's say you're getting a client, right? And let's say client is an ice cream shop. Actually, I'm in need of an ice cream at the moment. So this is what I'm thinking. So let's say he has an ice cream shop, so he's great in making gelatos, but he has no idea about benchmarking, competitive reports. He doesn't know by just delivering a website that the job hasn't been done. So how does this? How much time do you take to prepare for a client? Like, what questions you need? Do you have a checklist of questions that you come and tell them to give you some answers, or perhaps you take it individually, or perhaps you don't even ask, you just make a website based on actually how you think and what you think? How does that?
Yeah, the customer often doesn't know, so having a list of questions is a really good idea. I think as a freelancer, you give incredible amount of value for a business, because they're an expert in ice cream making. They're not an expert in sales or digital sales, online sales. And I think we have experience as freelancers with so many different avenues, from examples from being within a group of people, of how to bring customers, creating new avenues of sales. Connecting it to Amazon Marketplace, or whichever marketplace your local marketplace is. If there's an automation and you can have your same stock also listed somewhere else, well, that's another way of bringing people back to your customer. That's not just relying on Google or Google organically, which, by the way, is for something for next week as a teaser, where we talk about listing and positioning your site so it's actually number one, to get that right. But I think back to the ice cream shop, I think they need to know exactly who their customers are. That's something they'll tell you, and then you're going to help them explore maybe new pockets of customers and the way they want to check out, the way they want to use the website, what works well and what doesn't work well. But that's that's a bit of education that I think over the next 3 months there's a lot we are going to touch on, because I know, I don't know if I can give this away, but you hopefully get people who are UX designers that support on the design element of an optimized conversion, but also talking about different solutions, different business solutions and marketing, to help the business owners to succeed. It's not easy though. It really isn't easy. But I think what is key that you set the expectation right, that they don't expect something to happen overnight, unless of course they have paid marketing, a pay-per-click. And also you need to prepare them that they need to do their homework. Like, as I just gone through the whole user journey or customer journey, that each stakeholder will have something to do with your website build, and a lot of things are overlooked, not just the payment, but creating the emails. It's quite a tedious task to get that right. So setting the expectation that it's going to take quite a bit of time and involvement from the business owner, I think it's crucial.
This is awesome. We just have Rahul actually joining us. He had a very long call with the client, so he wasn't able to join us earlier. Hi, Rahul. Are you able to join with video and sound? Hello.
Well, he's connecting.
Yeah, that's cool.
Did you have another question, Maya?
Yes, but now that Rahul has joined, I have a question for him when it comes to actually gathering relevant. I mean, every business nowadays is actually differently perceived and architectured when it comes to online presentations. So before, we had like a shop with the window, so you just pass by and you see what is in shop, and that's it. And then the owner, he actually gets the flow, how many workers need to work that day, and in which shifts, and the shop will be open, and many different things. But with online shop, we will have a shop that it's open 24 hours a day. Anybody can shop at any time, so that's not an issue at all. So you don't have to have, let's say, dedicated people in the store because the store is open.
It's all automated. Yeah.
So, is it actually the case when a smaller business or a huge company actually comes to you and says, "Hey, we would like to set a web shop online"? Do you change their business perspective? I mean, as a designer and architect of the whole experience, how much do you actually influence the business strategy with the new online presence?
That's a really good question. And I think it always comes back to understanding the client needs, setting up a WooCommerce from the other side of the world, and not seeing how big the team is, how they, what the location is, where they are, where they actually create or pack or do something with it. Because that's a big bottleneck, because you can get 100 orders per minute, with the right scale, the right hosting. But if you can't process the 100 orders because your team isn't big enough or your warehouse isn't big enough, well, that's a big bottleneck. So you're then already limited to that. So there's no point talking about scaling and setting up a marketing campaign that's going to attract 20,000 visitors and 1,000 orders, because that's just a recipe for disaster. So understanding how the customer can scale. Obviously, that would be amazing if you can promise that overnight, isn't it? Where you say, yeah, sure, I'll give you 20,000. I suppose everything is possible with the right price. But the setting that up is quite it is difficult. I think being a freelancer or a developer, you've got to have so many skills. Because not only do you create a beautiful working website, you also need to understand the business processes. You need to know about marketing. You need to know, how to implement and different business flows. Is Rahul joining us?
I don't know. Rahul, are you there? Because I added him to the screen, but I don't see him talking. Maybe his sound and camera are actually in another application. I don't know, but actually I had a question for Rahul. I wanted to understand how long it takes him to prepare an actionable plan for a client, knowing how dedicated to details he is, and mathematics and analogy and research and benchmarking and everything. Hi,
Hello. Am I audible?
Yes,
I can hear you now.
Yeah. Okay. So what happened is, I have two microphone. One is the inbuilt one. Another is my this condenser one. So the problem is it by default takes the the default one, the device one, and for some reason that doesn't work most of the time. So that's where the problem arises. Anyways, so basically what we generally suggest is, first and foremost, every business is different. So I always ask the client that, what is it for the end client. Like, for example, if I'm building an e-commerce website, then definitely my client is not going to be the end customer, or we are not building the solution for the client, rather we are building it for the consumers or his client. So a lot of the agency, what they does is they try to build a solution that makes the customer happy, not the end customer. So primarily what we start is to understand the end customer, what is their pain point, or what are their things that they keep in mind in order to make a decision. Then accordingly we plan the whole marketing thing. Once the marketing plan is in place, then website is a part of the marketing for us. So people think that website is a part of the technology, but if we talk about digital marketing, then the full concept is technology and customer understanding, or I would say customer psychology. Because we need to just keep in mind two things. What are the things that will help our customer to make a decision, and why are they going to make a decision? Now it doesn't really matter like how we are reaching them. So the old concept that a lot of people will talk about is like, why I need your service, or why should I buy your product. A good example can be for online spectacles company like glass that we wear. So one of the companies based out of India, so when they were launching, they had a idea that they would promote the particular product to the upper middle class or the affluent class. Now the problem is the affluent class, the kind of brand that they are looking for, or the kind of brand that they would prefer to buy, is not something, or honestly speaking, a Gucci or somewhere or some top notch brand will not go ahead and sign up for a website that is, or maybe a startup company. They would say like, we have enough presence, why should we sign up with you? So what basically we did is, we targeted the like what they did is they targeted the wrong customer. Like they were targeting people like who are like rich people or the affluent class, rather than targeting the group of people who actually are their customer or might be their customer. Because what these rich people are looking for are not there in their website, or are not what they are offering. So just tweaking the target audience, the particular company actually was able to grow. Like every quarter they were at least growing 100%. So if this quarter they are processing like 10,000 orders, so next quarter it's easily like overpowering that in multiple times. So basically what we need to keep in mind is that, are we targeting the right audience? If yes, then what is in it for them, why they are going to buy my product or services? If those answers can be answered properly, then we can think about like how we can reach them, or how we can offer them, or more in details. But first we need to answer that, is I'm targeting the right set of people for my product or services.
Are owners of business aware who their target audience is? Because sometimes they have a very limited capacity to understand who could actually be the user. So is there like a reconfirmation of the target audience with the client constantly? Like, do you also propose some other types of people to involve, engaged, informed, or whatever?
Basically what happened is like most of the time they have a perception, not like a real decision or something that is backed by data. They think that this is my right audience, so they come up with that perception with us. So sometime if I give them a decision, for example, if I work with this particular niche, then I might have an idea that okay, so this might be the right customer base, or if he's doing it right or wrong, we can decide. But if that particular niche is completely new for us, then it becomes challenging for us to give them a because basically then what we will be doing is, they have a perception, we are giving them another set of perception, so that will not work. That might work, but that is no sure or assurance that it will work. So in that case what we do, whatever the customer comes up with a perception, we work on it for a time being. We collect the data. Once we have enough data set, then we do some tasting. For example, if someone is targeting maybe a particular demography, then we are probably suggesting him that, okay, let's try this demography, and let's analyze the data set of the result that we get. So once we see that, okay, so we have the data and everything, then we decide that, okay, if this is the right customer set or not. Because sometimes what happen is, like, customer comes with a perception, so that can be true or false. That can be something that might be completely opposite. Like I mentioned in my last answer, that that online glass company, they were completely targeting the wrong set of customers. So technically it might happen that they are completely in the opposite pole. And sometimes it might also happen that, okay, they have done their research right, and they have the data to back it up, or maybe at least have the set of experience to come up with a decision. So there is a huge difference between a perception and a decision, or a point that we can work on.
That's awesome, Ronald. When would you say that a succeeded? So how do we?
Sorry.
No, you've been like in Who business for a very long time, just like Rahul. But I just wanted to ask, when does a designer, developer, let's call it, like a service provider, let's call it like this, do you set some goals for the client and saying, okay, when we reach this milestone, this is when we know that we are good, so how does this planning for success works as well?
I think that's the beauty of WooCommerce. It's so instantly scalable that I think your first goal is your first organic order, not a test order. It's the first order from a customer. That's a huge goal, because that actually means that you've created something online. Somebody was able to purchase it, you're able to send it, and you can, in theory, although probably marginally small, earn some money. So that's a huge thing. And after that is just scale, because then it's your first 10, first 100, your first million, whichever way to go. But I think if you plan it really well, and you know where your end goal, or your not the end, but your middle goal is, medium goal, and there are different ways to get there, and you can have different ways to get there simultaneously. Last week we talked a lot about offering subscriptions. I have this business that I looked after. They create or they sell fabric, so old English fabrics, and the fabrics, it started out as creating kits to make beautiful things with the fabrics, like quilts or so. Then that turned into just selling fabrics, which overtook the quilt making. Then later on, they created a subscription pack that included a monthly piece of a quilt that eventually creates a huge blanket. And that now overtook the whole business again. But, they still keep on the three different verticals to keep growing. But, where they are now compared to 5-6 years ago when they started, I think that would have been in their wildest dream. And it's also talking back about the business process, because that same business, started with 2 employees. Now they have 40, and with 40 employees, different premises, they can tackle orders much faster. And then of course COVID came, and then suddenly they had to do split shifts, so they had to slow down a lot. So planning for business and using WooCommerce to sell. Yeah, as a developer, you need to really understand the customer, and what Rahul said as well is the customer's customer.
I think one of the hardest questions is that when an owner of business comes to you and says, when I'm going to start making money and how much I'm going to start making from this. Because somehow in business generally is like what you invest, then certain amount of, let's say, like sometimes one factor, then you will get whatever, right? So how it is hard to explain to people the process, and that it takes time to develop a business presence online, to develop the trust and whatever. So how does this relationship work from this point of expectations?
WooCommerce, you can start from next to no cost. So you could start from installing WooCommerce and out of the box adding a payment plugin. You can make a sale. So it's like with any business plan. You can sell a lemonade in the front of your drive to passers-by, or you can create a factory that creates lemonade for a multi-million project. It's all scale. It's how you create your business plan. But I think what has helped make WooCommerce so successful is that the threshold to get started, to install it on WordPress, and this is exactly where I went always wrong, because you install it, you can add a few products, you can make a sale within a day, and that's so powerful. Although if you do that for yourself, it's a lot easier than doing that for a customer, because we know all the things that can go wrong with planning for it. But I think it's and going through that planning stage, you discover so many different aspects of cost, of time, the different steps, the different journeys that people take. It's a complex machine that looks really simple from as a visitor, where you have a website, and if something doesn't work, I mean, how frustrating it is, and how complex is the site. You literally have thousands of files of code, of images, of styling, and you have this place where you visit and you can make a purchase, and it allows you to make a sale. It's such an amazing thing. And if you can then scale that, and you can scale that by you said it earlier, there is no limit to it. I mean, the limits are things like the capacity of the host, how much traffic it allows you to before it sort of crashes. The other limit are your own business, how fast can you process orders. But if you have an unlimited supply of users and customers, you can make a lot of money.
Sure. Rahul, what about you? How do you manage your own expectations regarding a certain project and your client expectations? How do you actually put those even to become?
Yeah, actually, for me, I'm pretty shameless and, probably a bit more greedy in terms of this, because a lot of people, they have a thing that, okay, for me, like, let's make $10,000 a target monthly. But for us, we keep things very simple. Like, okay, so I need this, we have, for example, I need one customer a day. That's probably something I would set as a goal. Or maybe, maybe one parameter that I keep is monthly recurring revenue, that is MRR. So we have goals in that kind of thing. Or maybe for a customer, like, we target not like we will achieve this much of dollar or this much of rupees or something like that, but we do it in this way. Okay, so we will achieve, like, in first month maybe 10 sales, but after that time, bare minimum that we will target is minimum 50% growth or minimum 25% growth, something of that sort. So if something happen minimum this amount, that is something we are like, we will have to achieve something of that sort. If it doesn't happen, fine, next month we need to make for it, like we need to maybe adjust for it. So that's something that we keep as a target, not like this way, that way, but we keep it. We just want to make sure that at any cost the curve will never go down. Like, if you put it in a graph paper, it should always go in the upward side. So that comes more like in form of traffic as well as sales as well as the revenue. So no matter what, the curve should not go down. Maybe traffic curve falls, I don't mind, but at least the money part should go up. So like, that's how we deal with clients. And sometimes what happens is, like, we have something called, like, revenue sharing model. So in that case, at any cost, if their money goes down, that means we are losing money. So it's quite complicated, but in simple language, we want, like, we keep the target that the curve should never go down, and MRR should always keep rolling. Like, rather than making, like, one time cost, we try to make it a monthly thing. Even it goes similar with products. Like, uh, like, here you can subscribe coffee. That means every month you will get a set quantity or set amount of coffee beans at your place. So that kind of thing we focus more, rather than getting a coffee or selling a coffee one time. Assuming that I'm working with a coffee company or something, So we want to make sure that not one-time customer, but something that would come on a recurring model, so that a recurring amount comes up every month. Because in most cases, what we have seen is that maybe the cost of acquiring a customer is something that make it justified that we target MRR. Maybe we target a bit less profit, and we have them on a monthly basis, and longer term we make more profit. So that's how we actually design it. So when we design the marketing, we also keep in mind that what might be the probable revenues model that we will follow. Not the exact amount, because that cannot be predicted, but the model and also the percentage that we again put it based on maybe assumption, and we keep a buffer as well. Then okay, like we always under commit, so that we do not fall in trouble. But we have those thing in place, like for that, our onboarding process is very very long. So it takes the from the time we sign an agreement and we actually start working, that duration is a quite longer one, because we have a lot of documentation and a lot of research involved in between.
So that's the team that you are working with. So you guys do everything for the client, and then based on that, you come up with a business strategy. You propose to them how much it costs, they invest, and you're operating it. Is if I understood correctly.
First, we charge them a consultation fees, and after that, for the service, we charge them again. But in most cases, what happen is, like, once the customer is onboarded, like basic research, we do it before we onboard the customer. Like, if anyone wants to work with us, or if any customer, like the way we work is like, for example, I like Ronald and he falls in one of the customer that I want to target. So basically it might happen that I'm stalking him for last 6 months, just to understand like what exactly he is doing, with whom he is going out, networking, what are the activities that his company does, every possible information that we can gather. So like that, we make a case studies. Okay, so I am targeting this person, and this is what he's dealing with, and this is his business success, and this is where they are lacking. So pretty much when I meet Ronald, I have a basic idea. I won't say basic, a very comprehensive idea about his personality, his way of work, and his company. Almost all the publicly available information, and sometimes private informations as well. So basically, which can be like you can find out. So we have all this information. Then before again approaching him, like we make a set of pain points. All right, so this might be the probable pain points that they have, and this is where we can help them. So maybe in 1 or 2 meetings we get things onboarded. Like we make sure that I'm telling him, or I'm providing a service that he is looking for, or that can actually solve his problem. And once he onboard, like before onboarding, or before we actually had a talk, we gathered all the information. So now that when Ronald said that, okay Rahul, let's proceed and let's start working, so we have almost 60 to 70% of the solution and the problem, everything with us. So rest 30% we do it, and then we have the complete strategy in place. Like we do a lot of overwork, you can say, but again it pays, it pays in long term, like because the similar niche customer or similar kind of customer, that time it helps us to come up with a predictable solution.
That is a lot of work what you're mentioning, Ronald. What do you say?
Yeah.
Well, I think he's got a really good point. I do it probably the same, but I've got three channels that I focus on, and there can be really easy wins, because you only need to go up a couple of percentage points. So if you increase on first of all is adding more customers to your store. So these are new customers that you haven't touched before or haven't come across, even if that's 5 or 10% or so. The other one is when they are in the purchase funnel to upsell, so increasing average order value by going 50 euros for to qualify for free shipping. One of the ways to increase the order value, but also creating bundles and so on. And then the last one is the third one is the frequency. So it's bringing customers back to your store. So if each of those you increase by 10% on a monthly basis, and 10% is not a massive deal, because if you do well, you'll grow organically anyway. But that in a way means that by the end by the end of the year, you've quadrupled your business, you quadrupled your revenue. So, small little gains and focusing on the three different parts of your business can do wonders, which is sort of simplifying. But I think it's what Rahul is saying, but in a slightly different take of it.
Yeah, I was mainly talking in place of agencies or maybe service providers, or maybe someone who's dealing with high value tickets. But what Ronald is talking about is basically he's extremely focused with e-commerce, and he's extremely focused with e-commerce. So I think his answer is more relevant than what I was saying, because my one is probably for the people who build e-commerce website, and his answer was something that would really help the store owner to make a decision on what they needs to do in order to get a great revenue.
Well, yeah, just to add to that, because that's also partly functionality. So it is using SaaS apps or other functionality enabled to do that. So it's a bit of both, but you can take it as whichever way you want to. But yeah, you're right.
But your points was these are bang on points, ekdom bullseye.
You know how I see the story that you guys are talking? Actually, one eye belongs the developer and the other eye belongs to the owner. So as a package, it's one head, two different views, and then one business or more business strategies. So in order to wrap up the meeting slowly, because we already, I think we are over time, but that's not an issue. We just like good stories, good talks. We like good friends joining us. Ronald, is there any a key takeaway that we would like to give to our audience for if we need to summarize everything we said? It's going to be very hard. Okay, I'm giving you a hard task, but let's summarize it to a point.
I know Rahul said it as well, which was really great, because I've been hammering on it all day. It's the customer first. Identify who they are, what they want from the site, and if you tick every single box, whether this is a good search, a good price, a good checkout, or a quick checkout, or to be able to do returns, but the whole user journey, if you keep that in mind, I think you're not going to fail. I think they will come back, they will buy more, and that's going to be key to slowly drive your business.
Rahul, would you have perhaps anything to add? I mean, you joined later, so you don't really know what we discussed, but the first thing.
Yeah, I think Ronald summarized it pretty well. I was mentioning, he made it very simple and just to the point, and that was great. And apart from that, one other way we can look into the matter is sometimes consumers are confused. So if you take the way Apple tries to work, or they, at least what I have understand, they come up with product that consumer want to have, because sometimes what happen is consumer themselves don't know whether I need that or not. So sometimes it's where the marketer come into the picture, that all right, so this is a product that can easily be can be sold or can be added on the cart. So those are a few points where again that can that will actually help to what Ronald said, improving your ticket price or the cart value. Then how to improve recurring purchase behavior from the customers. All those things can be implemented by adding something which customer knows that maybe something that customer came to buy, and also you make him or her to buy something. If both can be clubbed together, then I think revenue is bound to grow. So it's how we put the thing in front of them. It's how we played the thing. If presentation and the functionality works properly, and we know what customer is looking for, then I think any e-commerce business can success or can grow well.
That's awesome. Well, so basically, we're slowly coming to an end. Next week, we're going to be talking about optimizing your store for a business. We're going to have Ronald, Pete, and Jono. Pete Everett and Jono Alderson from Yoast. So we're going to be talking about mostly about SEO and this type of optimization for the next meetup. I just shared the link with everyone here, so you might just want to click and join us next Monday as well. I hope you are also preparing for your vacations, like some people that I know, and personally myself. So in the meantime, please reconnect with each other on Twitter, on other platforms. Let's talk. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. I'll just leave my Twitter handle here in the chat because you just might have a question for me later, or for Ronald. I already shared Ronald details. So let's stay in touch. Let's talk cool. Let's make some business, and let's see how we can improve the digital world. Thank you everyone for joining tonight.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
hosting.
Thanks, Maya.
Thank you, guys.
Well, thanks, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Take care.
Bye. Okay.